Capital Region history lives here, on this now empty land bordering Watervliet and Colonie. You'd never know it, though, save for some old tracks and train cars.
It had the capability of doing so many things.
1,600 people worked here at one time. 80 years it proudly stood.
I think there was a great deal of pride in the work.
Before planes and cars, there were trains and the Delaware and Hudson Colonie shops.
This article here I did in 2009.
Historian Jim Shaughnessy is an expert on the Delaware and Hudson Company, a coal shipping business founded in 1823.
The coal was the primary driving force behind the railroad.
Coal had always been carried by barge, but in 1829, Delaware and Hudson purchased 4 locomotives, and the D&H Railroad was born. And it grew.
They purchased in 1871 an already existing railroad company called the Rensselaer and Saratoga, and they did likewise with another railroad, the Albany and Susquehanna.
The D&H Railroad was growing so fast, 3 separate maintenance shops could not even service all the locomotives.
So they combined them all, and in 1912 they opened the Colonie shops, which at the time naturally was the state of the art.
In its early days, I've heard numbers as high as 1,600 people working there.
The Colonie shop's crew made a name early on in the steam locomotive era.
If you said that you worked for the D&H, you could get a job at any railroad in the country, no questions asked.
But expert engineer Chris McDermott started with D&H in 1970. By then, the line was powered entirely by diesel.
I irreverently compared the shop to working in a coal mine. It's hard to get rid of diesel smoke. It's very heavy, even though we had good fans. It just hung in there and you just couldn't get rid of it.
Nonetheless, the Colonie shops were a bustling, beautiful place.
A complete machine shop, very competent machine shop, good welding facility. They had a complete battery shop. We had at least 7 overhead cranes in the shop, and a crane could pick up a complete locomotive, truck still attached, and carry it over other locomotives in the same bay. It was a shop with huge capability.
And a motto to match.
Where big things happen?
By all accounts,
Yeah.
it was.
They were very successful for a long period of time.
But by the late 1970s and into the 80s, railroading hit the skids.
There were just too many railroads for the amount of business there was.
In '83, the Delaware and Hudson fell victim, first bought out by rival Guilford Rail, then merged with railways in Massachusetts and Maine. The Colonie shops fell by the wayside.
It was gradually downsized to the point where it was just doing some minor running repairs, they called them.
Guilford decided to put the D&H into bankruptcy, and I think that spelled the end.
Today, pretty much all that's left of the massive shops is the rail that runs alongside where they used to be.
After the D&H went under, the Colonie shops stood vacant 14 years. But in 2005, fire destroyed the main building. The complex was soon demolished.
And it was gone, and that was the end of the story for the shops at Colonie.
Today, trees and brush are crumbling what's left of a place that once put Colonie on the map.
All these people that I worked with, I miss working with them. They were all great friends.
I do miss it, but there's reality says that you have to let go at some point.
And a Capital Region cornerstone slips further into history.
And for part 2 of Capital Region Cornerstones on Tuesday, we're going to be taking a look back at more than 50 years of music history in Gloversville.